Mom, the video game's broken again.
Go outside and play!
I hate this green guy.
Attention humans! Your present era of peak TV is replete with new horror, science fiction, and fantasy programming that, despite otherwise high production values, is often structurally predictable. This is especially the case when one considers how this new programming engages the fantastic as described by Todorov and his contemporaries. While a series like Carnival Row presents the marvelous subgenre with fidelity, others like The Boys and Stranger Things quickly resolve to the fantastic marvelous despite their scientific pretensions. What little room may be carved for the purely fantastic in these shows vaporizes given the frenetic pace of your binge watching. You are seldom asked to wallow in uncomfortable uncertainty and never have to if you quickly start the next episode. However, this is not the case with Amazon's animated series Undone, which seems to delight in making viewers uncomfortable. Created and written by Raphael Bob Waxberg and Kate Purdy, both known for their work on BoJack Horseman, Undone tells the story of Alma Winograd Diaz as she struggles to cope with her physical and mental health against a backdrop of ethnic, socioeconomic, and family tensions. Almost simultaneous with a near-fatal car accident, Alma begins communicating with her deceased father, who wants her to solve the mystery of his death and alter that timeline. As with other series, a careful combination of mise-en-scène and dialogue offer both Alma and the audience rational, scientific explanations for her experiences that seem to preclude the fantastic. These include traumatic brain injury and mental illness. Yet, because a compelling case can be made against each of these causes, and especially for a marvelous genetic predisposition to shamanism, the main character and viewer are confronted with an overwhelming indeterminacy. Your collective desire to make sense of the world and settle comfortably into the realm of the uncanny or marvelous is further frustrated through the use of rotoscope animation, which by its very nature only slightly abstracts reality while at the same time allowing for the seamless integration of supernatural representations. Although the story feels fantastic throughout, this state is solidified in the final scene when the only reliable witness has left and the camera refuses to show viewers what Alma sees. In that Stockton-esque moment, the purely fantastic, a state that Todorov did not discuss, emerges. My transmission today will help your feeble-minded species understand the magnificence of this animated work. Now I will provide a summary and analysis that you desire. After the title of the series fades out, viewers transition from a long shot of a city to an overhead shot of a maze of highways. Just as the camera reaches the street level of a four-way intersection, a car speeds through the intersection, narrowly avoiding an accident. Inside the speeding car, a crying and frustrated young woman bangs her hands on the steering wheel. Over the whine of the engine, the audience hears a strange hum, and ink-like shapes begin to form on the street in front of the car. As the woman notices these shapes and leans forward in curious disbelief, her car is hit from the side by a truck, sending the car spinning until it eventually crashes into a light post. The young woman hits her head on the steering wheel and lies unconscious with blood dripping from her forehead. In a voiceover, she says, "I am so bored of living." While complaining about the mundanity of her life, the scene cuts to her lying in bed, showering, brushing her teeth, getting dressed, and putting on a cochlear implant device, eating breakfast, commuting, and even grocery shopping. The voiceover transitions seamlessly into a conversation the young woman is having in a bar with another character who is clearly showing off an engagement ring. Viewers learn that the main character's name is Alma. Her sister with the engagement ring is Becca, and their father is presumably dead. After the bar, Alma staggers drunk-like into her house, disrobes, and comically humps her boyfriend Sam's butt. When he says, "You're so crazy," she recoils in protest, and he apologizes. Later, while visiting her mother, Camilla, Alma asks about her paternal grandmother, Geraldine, who got married, had 3 kids, lost her mind. You also learn that Alma's father died 20 years earlier in a mysterious accident. The next few days are filled with an awkward engagement party, a breakup, more drunkenness, and several more insights into Alma's concern over her broken brain. After fighting with her sister and saying, "We are broken people, okay? Broken people break people," the audience has returned to the opening scene with the speeding car. Except this time it is clear that the ink blot is Alma's father materializing in front of her. The second episode transitions quickly to a hospital room where Alma is lying in bed with a bruised head. Her previously dead father is sitting in a chair next to her. The story cuts to a scene from Halloween with Alma's father, mother, and sister. Alma is not coincidentally dressed as Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz. The scene fractures apart like breaking glass to reveal a starry sky and Alma in the hospital bed. When Alma looks up, she can see her mother and sister talking but cannot hear them without her cochlear device. She notices her father in the corner, and the audience is carried back briefly to Halloween night. After Alma makes a joke about a coma, you finally hear her father speak. Alma asks him a question and looks at him sitting in the chair. Becca looks at the same chair, but it is empty. The scene becomes increasingly strange as the hospital room transforms into a pastoral scene. Alma says, "I feel like I'm caught in a weird loop." At this moment, the scene cuts to the hospital cafeteria where she is sitting with her father and repeats the same phrase. He explains that either she has one foot in the world of the dead and one in the world of the living, and you are communicating with me through some sort of spirit realm, and the accident has shaken your temporal understanding of time and space and somehow given you the ability to see things in a nonlinear fashion, or this is all just some fever dream, morphine drip, head trauma type of thing. Of course, there's also a third option. Alma may have had a psychic break like her grandmother. As Bolingaro writes, the fantastic is not only about what is or what is not the case, a cognitive predicament, but also about what is possible, what can be done, and then inevitably what ought to be done. From this point in the series, Alma slips both accidentally and sometimes purposefully through time trying to solve the mystery of her father's death. At the very end, she is convinced that she has altered the timeline and travels to a sacred Mayan cave to await his return as viewers wait anxiously with her. If her father appears, this means she is sane, powerful, and you have watched a fantastic, marvelous story. If he does not appear, she is likely mentally ill, and this is a fantastic, uncanny story. Her sister joins her and waits with us for the resolution. When the father does not appear at sunrise, the story dives hard toward the fantastic uncanny. Just then, Alma asks for a moment alone, and the only reliable witness leaves the scene. The camera cuts to a dimly lit close-up of Alma's sullen face. As the sun rises, the background music crescendos, her expression becomes one of intense focus, and she begins to breathe heavily. The story whipsaws back to the fantastic marvelous with equal force, and viewers are abandoned in the middle of Todorov's paradigm. Rotten Tomatoes, a popular site on your planet, gives Undone a perfect tomato-meter score of 100 after 48 critic ratings and an audience score of 93% after 487 user ratings. They describe the series as a kaleidoscopic existential crisis. Undone bends the rules of space, time, and rotoscoping to weave a beautifully surreal tapestry that is at once fantastical and utterly relatable. The use of the word fantastical is especially notable here. While it is most likely being used in the ubiquitous common way, it is nonetheless theoretically apropos. As Alma struggles to understand if her experiences are real or imagined, from the viewer's perspective, she is able to jump through time, make subtle changes to the timeline, and gain insights into her father and his associates that are difficult to explain except through time travel. At the same time, the audience is continually reminded by Alma and the other characters that there is a family history of psychosis. Alma even submits herself to psychoanalysis and is prescribed medication. When the narrative begins to shift too definitively to the fantastic uncanny or the fantastic marvelous, the audience is presented with some bit of compelling information that pulls them in the opposite direction and back to the fantastic center. At the end of Undone, no equilibrium is restored, and it is not possible for viewers to look to magical realism or Freud's uncanny for a viable alternative. Undone carves out even more ambiguity by totally disrupting the conventions of Hollywood film. Notably, the series was created through a combination of rotoscope animation, computer animation, and paintings. Because rotoscope animation begins with live footage of actors and the particular techniques used for Undone are comparatively soft when compared to the dark lines of a rotoscope film like A Scanner Darkly, it is easy for viewers to forget that they are not watching a traditional film. As a result, shifts in time, space, and activity don't stand out so much as special effects, but instead seem a natural part of the world. When Alma transports herself into a get-well card brought to her by her ex-boyfriend, it looks as real as anything else in the world. There are not additional special effects to signal that one should interpret the situation in some way other than reality. This ambiguity may be even greater for those who saw Undone's star, Rosa Salazar, in the motion capture animated Alita Battle Angel. The actress herself seems to slip across time, space, media, and genres. Tragically, the series has been renewed for a second season on Prime Video, and I sympathize with Opie, who ends his article on Digital Spy with this. As much as we would love to revisit this world, the first season of Undone is perfect the way it is. And while some might find the lack of answers frustrating, anything else would betray the spirit of the show. While Opie does not examine the series through the lens of the fantastic, he certainly delights in the same ambiguity. Because what is so magnificent about the series Undone is that it does not force the reader to slip left or right of Todorov's paradigmatic center, but instead illustrates, for the time being, what it means to be purely fantastic. While I will certainly watch a second season if humans stream it, I fear that it will undo the entire premise of this broadcast. End transmission.
Finally, he's gone. Mom, make me a sandwich.
Make it yourself!